the further I got up the ladder, the issues started happening. So you know how Biggie Smalls is like
Yeah, I'm not
more
surprised.
money, more problems.
More money for
More
problems.
money,
Yes.
more titles, more problems.
Welcome to the She's So Sweet podcast, where we interview accomplished women who have worked their way to the C-suite. I'm your host, Kristi Falteruso, Chief Customer Officer and award-winning customer success executive. I am really excited to introduce today's guest. I have with us today Tas Bober, who is the founder of the Scroll Lab. And so, Tas, I have to say, welcome to the show. But my favorite thing that you've given me already is the name pronunciation. Everyone knows I am a stickler for that. I never want to get anyone's name wrong. And so you gave me Tas like sass. And I think that might be my favorite so far. So
Yeah, and
welcome.
thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So excited to dig into the story. Love the purpose of the podcast too. I do a lot of like free advice on people, even though it has nothing to do with what I actually do to make money. I love doing things like this that can help someone else because I wanted that so badly. But the task like SaaS thing is so interesting to me because it's actually twofold. So I am very sassy. So you know I got the snap.
I got
Yeah,
that vibe. I got that
yeah.
vibe when we were kicking off. So I'm into it.
Yeah. And then the other part is I focus on B2B SaaS companies. And so also, just depending on what kind of person you are, you can take it either way. So it just kind of worked
I love
out
it.
and it was kind of meant to be.
Well, it might be my favorite framework for enunciating a name. So I love that for us. Okay, we're going to get in. But before we do, take the stage. I want you to tell us about Scroll Lab. Tell us about what you're doing there. Set us up so we can dive right in.
Okay, so the Scroll Lab is actually the new name. My company was called Delphinium, so some people are going to be like, "What? What's Scroll Lab?" So that was just a this year thing, but that is me really leaning into the niche, and so that's always been something that's really interesting for people, where they're like, "Well, you're this digital and marketing, director, and why aren't you doing fractional stuff? And you can do everything. And why are you just focusing on landing pages?" But it is very, very focused and specific. So it's campaign landing pages for B2B SaaS companies. So it's very, very specific, but trust me, it works. And we can lean into that piece a little bit. But for most of my career, I've actually been in-house at companies leading digital and website teams or being part of the digital and website teams under marketing. So that's kind of the quick backstory. And then now randomly became an unintentional entrepreneur. Totally zero intention of doing it, but here I am. Fell into it.
So how long ago did that happen? So when did we make this pivot out of working in these companies to transitioning out on your own?
July 2023.
Oh, great. And how has business been?
Much better than I expected. So I actually was really burnt out working in house. And then as I came out, I told my husband, I'm like, I'm so burnt out. I sacrifice a lot of time with my kids. So for those listening, I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And I lost a lot of time with my daughter working at these companies, doing 50, 60 hours, working in startups. If anybody's done that, they know what that feels like. And I kind of hit that point. So when my last company and I kind of came to an end, I decided that I was just going to try to do some like part-time stuff, like, yeah, whatever. And so my goal was, if I made $60,000, which was a quarter of what I was making in-house, and I got to work 3 days a week and then just optimize for the life part of work-life balance and kept my son home intentionally on Mondays and Fridays and spent time with him, I'd be happy. Like if I just made base, we're comfortable, that kind of thing. Anyway, needless to say, now a couple years in, I still do the 3-day week thing, but I make way more than I ever made in-house. And so I'm still optimizing for the life part. I have a pure lifestyle business, not a grow at all cost business. And before we jumped on this podcast and hit record, we talked about your daughter who's highly ambitious. Just really finding her way right now. That was me growing up. My mom never had to push me for the grades or the ambitions. I always had the drive, always had the grades. So I always thought I was voted most likely to be CEO. And it's funny.
I know. I loved that
I
when you had
know.
that in here. I was like, wait, I didn't even know that was a superlative. That's definitely not the one I got.
Yeah. Well, I think college had it, in my
Okay.
case, and so I was voted most likely to be CEO, and I was like, "Whatever." But I always thought my path would be climb the ladder and then make my way to CMO, CEO, whatever, something in the C-suite.
Yep.
So it was weird that I kind of took a sidestep, side door approach. So technically, I am CEO, but not in the way that I thought it would go.
Well, it's so interesting, right? Because there's so many definitions of success, and it sounds like what you have done is you were very intentional about designing your life and saying that this will be what success is for me at this stage, right? I want to be able to lean into my family and be a present mom and still satisfy your need of like I still want to be impactful and I still want to help, contribute to my family financially, right? So all of those things were still very intentional. So, I love that you redefined success for yourself. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, after chasing those like 2% raises and
Oh, girl, don't I know it?
yeah, fighting for this promotion from director to senior director, and then realizing now, looking back, I'm like, all of that is so fake. Like, it's just pseudo measures of self-worth and success that other people have put on us, and we have tried our best to try to achieve those things. And I had been chasing them for so long that I realized that I attached a lot of my self-worth to that, and I was like, I need to step
Mhm.
away because things didn't pan out the way I wanted to. And it's hard because and now there's a lot of debate about it, but like y- you used to be able to tell kids if you worked hard and you got the skills and you joined this company and you made your way up and you were loyal and hardworking, you will get promoted and you will reach where you want to go, right? We made it sound so much like we had control over that. But what
Right.
we don't tell children, and what, especially girls, is there's going to be a lot of these invisible obstacles that you have to jump over. So you might end up in the C suite and take the same path as perhaps a male, right? But you'll have a lot of like other things like bias, or you'll be looked at a little bit differently, right? I recently posted about this on LinkedIn where I was like, you have challengers, but a male challenger will be looked at as assertive and strong, and a woman challenger is a troublemaker and not a team player. How do you teach your kids that sometimes just based on who you are, you're going to have judgment placed on you, or uh you're going to have these like preconceived notions that you had no control over, and that will actually inhibit your success to some degree, and those are obstacles you have to fight for. There's no school to train on that, right? You can
No,
get
there
an
isn't.
engineering degree, but do they talk about how women in engineering can overcome that? I never studied that in school. um and so it's
Yeah.
really up to us as the mothers and parents to just like teach them that those things happen, and how they can react to it, right? um
It's sad though that that still has to be part of the
yes.
conversations we're having, right? Like I feel like that's where I feel defeated
Yeah.
and I feel sad. Honestly, if I can be very honest about what the emotion is I just feel sad. That's not the conversation I want to be having with my daughter because I
Yes.
do want her to think that she can go and do anything and all of these things are possible. And I hate that I have to have the conversation of like, yes, but
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And so it sucks that we're still navigating that landscape.
Mhm.
And, to think about what I experienced early in my career, and I'm probably sure you had similar experiences, but then to be 23 years into my career, 24 years in my career, and still see the same things occurring, maybe not at the same volume, but like they're still there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then you add some other layers to it, like I'm obviously a woman of color, and then you have my children who are now interracial, and so we have those additional layers where it's like people may just dislike you for who you are and you had nothing to do
Right.
with it, and you may be paid less because you're considered in this different group, even though we're all human beings. And so that stuff is really hard to communicate, not to get too TMI, but Like, my daughter's 5 and she's used to not leaving me alone when I go to the bathroom and things like that, right? And so when we were
That doesn't, by the way, just so you know, that doesn't ever end.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Amazing. Yeah.
Just so I mean, I don't think that you'll ever be alone in the bathroom again
Ever
until
again.
they're off to college.
Yeah.
So yeah, just prepare.
Amazing. Well, we were in a public restroom and I obviously couldn't leave her by herself. So she's standing there, she
Right.
sees the like tampon dispenser and she's like, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, those are tampons." "Mm, what do we need those for?" I'm like, "Well, women go through it." So I explained the whole thing to her and she's like, "Oh, I will bleed when I'm older." I'm like, "Yes. Um, but that's okay." And she goes, "Every month?" I'm like, "Yes." And it sucks. That is gonna Does it hurt? Sometimes, you get aches, whatever. And she has a lot of like boy best friends and stuff like that because she just grew up with them. And she's like, "Okay, is Jacob gonna go through the same thing?" I'm like, "No. Why does Jacob not go through the same thing?" Because he's a boy. So I did not expect to have that conversation so early on with her, but the horror and disappointment in her eyes that she felt she was gonna be like the only one to have to go through that.
Oh,
Um, but I feel like
yeah.
there's a lot of those conversations I'm gonna have to have with her to prepare her for
Yeah.
what's to come. And nobody did that with me. And I think it was the opposite for me because my mom, super strong, entrepreneurial, and but I grew up in Asia. And so in Asia, we don't talk about a lot of things. And so my mom's very much like that, where I saw her cry like twice in my life. You know, if I fell down, it was like, "You're fine, get up." So there was not a lot of like emotional caretaking that kind of happened. And my mom's an amazing, strong woman and was a great role model for me. But that's some of the generational stuff I'm breaking now, is having those conversations with my daughter, right? Not telling her to just suck it up. That she doesn't have to suck it up sometimes, that crying isn't weakness. So just things like that, where we have to kind of pivot and parent a lot differently than our parents did.
I love that you're leaning into that opportunity. I think we do a lot of the same in our house. I grew up here, but you know, I don't even remember my dad ever telling me that he loved me growing up. And
Mm,
not that that's bad,
yeah.
but like they just didn't show the same care and there wasn't a lot of emotion. My parents worked 7 days a week and they owned
Mm,
their own business and it was like, to your point, it was like, okay, get up, dust it off, stop doing this. Like, it's just there just wasn't a lot of like interest in understanding why I was doing something or feeling a certain way or, real answers to questions that I had. Or quite frankly, I didn't ask the questions
mm,
because I didn't think that I would get it. You just didn't have those conversations. On the flip side, though, my daughter, she's complete opposite. First of all, I don't know how many times a day she says I love you. I think maybe I'm like, do you have a limit on the number? Like it's like 100,000 times a day, every
yeah.
second. She's like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And so we definitely are so much more aware of our emotions and how we feel and we talk about everything, big or little. And I think that's really special because it's not something that we all grew up with. So I love that you're leaning into it and kind of changing the things that you didn't get in a positive way so that your kids have that moving forward. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, speaking of kids, though, I want to go back to when you were a kid because this is always my favorite part of the conversation. I and I always say this, I don't want to assume, but I do assume because I don't think that anyone says, yes, I wanted to be the founder and CEO of Scroll Lab, right? Like I'm sure that like you were ambitious and I get that. We've talked about it, but this wasn't a vision that you had when you were a kid. So I want you to think as far back as you can go. So go all the way in the archives. What did you want to be when you were little? As little as you can remember. What was the thing you thought you'd be when you grew up?
Every day after school, I would come home and watch Emergency Vets every single day. And I honestly thought that I was just going to rescue animals and, you know, take care of animals and take care of sick animals and things like that. So I was like, oh, 100% a vet. I mean, you can ask my mom. That's all I talked about, wanting to be a vet. And then I saw blood in real life. And that changed real
Fair.
quick. It made me very woozy. And then I realized, oh, being a vet isn't just petting cute animals all day. I'm like, I'm gonna actually have to get in the guts and things like that. I'm like, that's not a lot of fun. So that changed really quick. And then I moved into wanting to be a singer because that's when American Idol came out. Yes, I watched American
Fair.
Idol in Asia. And then my dad very sweetly told me, "You have a good voice," because I was in choir and did all of those things. He's like, "Now, are you like like superstar level voice, I'm like, is he telling me that I can't do this right now? Because that's just gonna piss me right off, and that's what I'm gonna want to do. But then I ended up, not doing that. And one of the rules my parents had, which I argue with my husband about now, is we were like a no TV in the bedroom household. And the great part about that is I read a lot as a child. So when I wanted my time alone, I was always in my bedroom reading. And I love the art of storytelling, and so I really wanted to write. And so I was like, fine. The realistic career path for me, not being a vet, not being a singer, right? Like almost like two opposite ends, is being able to write and tell stories. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to be a journalist. That's what I'm going to go to school for. Ended up going to school for journalism. Was bored because after the Indian education system, which is very, very, very difficult, I went to then like an American university in Thailand, and it was very, very easy. So I went to my dean and I was like, hey, can I do my internship early or like do like other stuff? And she's like, we usually don't have first years do internships, but like, yeah, we would put your credit towards that. I'm like, okay. So I went and got a job with a business publication for foreign ambassadors named The Director.
Oh, wow.
And my editor, Gareth, shout out Gareth, Scottish, and in his very Scottish accent, which I'm not going to imitate and make a fool of myself, told me, listen, you're a great writer. You're very ambitious and driven, but I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to absolutely hate writing for someone else. And I'm like, what's up with
Oh,
people telling
interesting.
me that I can't do shit? Like, what is going on here? Like, what? So annoyed, very, very annoyed. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you suggest I do, big tough guy that's trying to push women down or whatever? And he's like, I think that you should go back to your university, open up your major, and make it something a little bit broader, like communications. And then your minors should be a little more niche and focused. So, but whatever you pick, have it be a hard skill that you can fall back on.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, so basically back up your backup. So I went back, looked at it, expanded to communications because I could still do journalism with that, but then I had other
Mhm.
options. And then I did a marketing minor, and then I did a secondary focus on computers front end, so like website stuff. And in a twisted turn of events, as much as I hate to admit that Garrett was right,
Right.
my entire business today is marketing and landing pages for B2B SaaS. So it is focused on the website and marketing. So my backups that he recommended I put in place are the ones that have had become not just my business now, but were then my entire career after the first year in journalism.
I love that you didn't fight that and you kind of like allowed yourself to take the advice and lean into it because I don't know how you are. I would say I'm a bit stubborn and right. So if somebody tries to tell me what I am or what I'm not or what I should do, I'm like very resistant to
Hmm.
listening to that. Or maybe I was. Probably I'm not as bad anymore. But I love that you actually like leaned into the advice that you were offered because look, it served you so well. It's exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I was still annoyed, but I'm like, you know what? He is older. He's successful. He's the editor of this magazine, which would be ultimately what I want to do is be editor
Right, right.
of something like this. And so I'm like, he's got to know something. So there was an area of like, yes, I'm stubborn, but also the humility of like, I get it. And I think there's patterns of that where my first reaction is always the sour one. Like my dad saying, listen, you're a great singer. It's going to be a tough road to be like superstar singer.
Right.
And there's a part of me that already knew that it would be, um, and so with Garrett, I was like, you know what? I'm not giving up on the journalism thing. I'm just giving myself options. And so the irony is, and last week I just gave a workshop to like 18 to 25-year-olds just starting their like careers and lives. And I told them the same thing. I'm like, at the end of the day, the best thing you can give yourself are options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, and we're actually going to get to a place where, like, how do you pay it forward? But that was a great example of something you're already doing to help folks navigate that. But let's spend a little bit more time on your career journey, because obviously your career has not been linear, right? Like,
Yes.
you've, even from your educational standpoint, you took all these like kind of like pivots and twists and turns. But I want you to reflect back on the career aspect here, and what were some of these big pivotal moments or decisions that you feel like really contributed to your overall success?
Yeah. So when I worked for Garrett, it was back in Bangkok, Thailand. So we had an English publication in a foreign country, right? And I'm half Thai, by the way. So like I was more local than he was, Mr. Scottish. But my goal was always to move to the US. So my stepdad is American. I'd been coming here ever since I was like 14. I knew I was going to move to the US. The irony being that um, I wanted to move from Asia because I felt like the glass ceiling was a lot lower there. And I would be able to achieve a lot more here with the amount of drive and ambition that I had. Um, and so that's what I did. So it was always the plan that I would move here. Now, when I finished high school, I was only 16. So my mom was like, I'm not sending my 16-year-old daughter to the US by herself. Like it's
Right.
going to be like a shark attack, right? So I had to begrudgingly go to college in Thailand. Once I finished up, the minute I finished up, which I finished in 3 years, and I was like, I'm out of here. And I was only 20 at the time. So I moved here at 20, and I interviewed like hell at all of these publications because I wanted to be a journalist. I was going to be a journalist. No one was going to tell me any other way. And finally, I applied to this NBC TV station in Des Moines, Iowa, talking to Rod Peterson, my editor. And, we're interviewing. I met him in person, on the phone, whatever. And mind you, this is a job that was working overnights at the TV station, writing
Mm.
articles on their website. It was an entry level position, making $25,000 a year gross. Okay. 18 net. Right. Um, I'm on the phone with Rob, interview with him, whatever. He's like, cool, I'm going to let you know next week. He calls me the following week. I'm like, well, have you made a decision? And he's like, well, it's really between you and this, like, goes on to explain this decorated person who's like, went to Iowa State, top of his class, did all these like crazy internships, all of the stuff, right? Like there was no way I was competing with this guy with my like immigrant, like no name school, like from the other side of the world. I sounded extra funny at the time, like all of this stuff. And Rod just keeps going on and on about this dude. And I'm on the phone like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. So I'm just going to shoot my shot. And I'm like, okay, Rod, listen, I'm going to stop you there. You could hire this guy and he would be a really great hire. And I love that for you. But he is going to mess up. And when he does mess up, right, you are going to be sitting in that chair of yours wondering why you didn't hire that crazy brown girl who had so much drive and ambition that she would have brought so much more to the table just because she didn't have those things behind her. And it was just like so quiet on the phone. And I was like, whatever, like it's gone at this point. And he burst out laughing, which then I find out later that like Rod's laugh is like a thing at the TV station.
Oh, okay.
Like his laugh was like so boisterous and loud. And he was like, oh my God, I love that. Come in on Monday. And I was like, what? And that's how I got my first job. I basically tell him, or I threatened my way into my first job. And
I love that. I feel like anybody listening to this, if you take nothing away from you, like the shooting your shot, but like how you did it, you were like, I have nothing to lose. Like the way that he's talking about this other guy,
he's going to
it's
go for
very
it.
obvious that he had already made up his
Yes.
mind. And you're like, literally have nothing to lose, right? Like
Nothing.
it's clear he's going in that direction. And because you actually like leaned into that moment and said, no, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say and see what happens. Nothing worse can happen than I don't get the job, which I already believe I'm not getting anyway.
Yes.
I love that. I love that so much.
And I mean,
How old were you when you had that conversation?
20. And you know what's funny? The station policy was that he couldn't hire me until I was 21. So so I had to come in on Monday and fill out the paperwork, but I couldn't officially start until I turned 21.
Okay, what was the gap there? Because now I need to know. Like,
It was
are we
like
talking like weeks,
it was
months?
a couple months.
Okay,
So he
that's
actually
so
went
funny.
without having someone in that position for a couple months before I could start. Mhm.
Well, clearly you were worth waiting for.
Clearly, and even today when I think about that, of all the things that had happened in my career and like crazy things and how it came to be, I will never just I don't know, it's just like still hard to believe that like if I were in his position, I would have gone with the person that was far more decorated and had
Well,
a
it was a
life
safe
achievement.
bet.
Yes,
For him, it was a
exactly. It was a
safe
safe
bet,
bet.
right? Like,
Mhm.
because to your point, on paper, this person's checking all the boxes,
Yes.
has the experience, has the pedigree. It's like,
Yeah.
this is an obvious choice for us. So, like, good for him for
Yeah.
like recognizing and seeing so much in you just from that moment.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, like, he deserves to be celebrated as much as you do in that moment, because he could have went a very different direction and he didn't. And obviously, I'm sure if he reflects back on decisions that he made in his career, I am sure you would be one of those pivotal decisions that he made, because it probably really worked out well for him.
Yeah. It actually didn't work out that well for him because
All right, plot twist. Let's
with
go. Where are we going with it?
um
The She's So Sweet podcast is brought to you by Client Success. Client Success is an all-in-one customer success platform to help post-sale implementation and success teams manage customers from new to renew. Through an industry-leading platform approach, Client Success gives businesses an in-depth view into customer health, product usage trends, along with churn and risk data, so that your team can not only retain customers, but help them grow as well. Whether it's managing customer onboarding workflows in shared portals, building custom health scores, tracking sentiment with NPS surveys, or doing more with less through AI and automations, Client Success gives customer success professionals a true one-stop platform to manage all aspects of the customer journey. To learn more about the industry's fastest to implement customer success platform, visit www.clientsuccess.com. That's Client Success. Simple, powerful customer success. I'm sure if he reflects back on decisions that he made in his career, I am sure you would be one of those pivotal decisions that he made, because it probably really worked out well for him.
yeah, it actually didn't work out that well for him because
All right, plot twist. Let's
with
go. Where are we going with it?
um he was very happy with hiring me for the job. But a year later, Garrett was right. I absolutely hated writing for someone else. And
Okay.
so after working a whole year overnights as a 20 something, not having a social life, just like
It's
tired all
tough.
the time in a new country, like learning how to drive. I mean, there was just so many things happening and it was very like lonely and scary too. Cause like I work for a TV station. A TV station's bread and butter is when there's like bad weather in the Midwest. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to go in. If there was a snowstorm, I had to go in. When do storms happen? Mostly at night. And I remember
Yeah.
like driving real slow, crying on my way to work because I grew up in the tropics. Like I'd never experienced this kind of weather before, let alone driving in it by myself, not knowing what to do.
Okay, that's like one of those crazy things that I would never think about,
Yeah.
right? Because for somebody who grew up in the Northeast, right, like weather, there's always
Yeah.
weather, right? It's rain, it's snow, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So I've always just like, that's so normal for me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even dawn on me that that is something, another new thing you had to take on, right?
Yeah.
Like you already have all these new things you're facing that wouldn't even have made a list of 1,000 in my head.
Yeah. And, like I grew up in climate that was like hotter, hottest, and monsoon. Those were the 4 seasons we had. Okay. So it's like, over
Really great hair weather is what you're telling
yeah.
me.
My husband always jokes. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you never want a December birthday," which I have a December birthday, but like it didn't matter when you were born in India
Yeah.
because like literally it's the same climate like all the time. So I'm like, why wouldn't anybody want a December birthday in the US? I'm like, "Oh, okay, I got it." Um, but yeah, so I went into Rod's office on my 1 year anniversary and I said, I love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, but I can't freaking do this anymore. and uh and he's like, look, I totally understand. I was like ready. I was ready for him to be like, all right, well, good luck. Let me know if you need a recommendation, whatever. He's like, look, we actually have an opening in the advertising department upstairs. It's a daytime job. I can put in a word so that you interview with Mark, who is now, who's the GM or GSM upstairs, the sales manager. Interview with him, see if you like that better, but like, we don't want to lose you at the station. We love having your personality around and like whatever. And I was like, why does this dude like me so much? Like, there's this part of like when you're a driven person, and you talked about this with Adriana a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where you didn't even have the chance to punish her because she's so hard on herself. And I really think
Yeah.
that is the makeup of a high performer or someone who's so hardworking, is that they have this like insane confidence and this drive, and it's like impenetrable. And then you have this other side where it's like soul crushing self like criticism.
Yeah.
And so there's this part of me that's like, I deserve all of these things and blah, blah, blah. And then this other part of me is like, why would I ever deserve those things? So it's kind of this crazy thing. And I sometimes it's other people seeing the things in you that you don't see. And he must have seen something where he wouldn't even be working with me every day, but he thought I was valuable enough to like keep. Um, and the funny thing is, there's this one story when I was writing, for the station, and they put up this TV behind me one day, and they turned it on, and it was this tool called Chartbeat, and it showed like,
I'm very familiar with Sharpie.
are you familiar? No one
Yes.
ever has
So
heard.
because I used to work in SEO and digital marketing.
Okay.
And so they were actually a company that we pitched because they used to use, like, Bloomberg was one of the customers that we had worked with,
Okay.
and they were using Chartbeat to analyze all of the data. So
Yes.
yes, I am familiar with Chartbeat. Is it still around, by the
I
way?
don't know. I like.
All right,
I
I'll
think
go Google
we
that
need to.
later.
Yeah, we need to look at that. So this is pre
But it
Geo.
was super
Yes,
impressive.
pre Google Analytics. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, all
yeah.
this stuff. So here's Chartbeat. They turn it on. I'm like so excited that you know what Chartbeat is. Most people are like, huh?
Nope, I got
And
you.
it gives us real time traffic
Yep.
on the website. And so I would publish an article and look up, and I'd be like, there's 30 people reading it right now. And
Is it the dopamine from that,
oh
right? Did you
my,
go nuts?
yes.
It was
I,
the one thing I loved about digital marketing was the immediacy of the results and
yes,
the impact, right? Like, you do something and you see something.
yes,
And for me, as somebody who's so results oriented, and it seems like you're very much like that as
yes.
well, the dopamine I would get if I did something and then I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Ah, look, amazing.
I was so hooked. So when I went to him and I'm like, I don't like the writing bit, but I love the like data stuff. And, with
Mm-hmm.
Sharpie, he's like, oh, well, go up. There's like this specialist role, like a digital specialist, and you would essentially be working on the website, not in a writing capacity, but you would still have access to Chartbeat and everything else. So it just sounded great. And it was like during the day, it was $5,000 more a year, and I get access to the same kind of data feedback without the writing component. I'm like, oh hell yeah. So went upstairs, interviewed for that position. I don't even know how many other people they had, but it wasn't as competitive. And they preferred hiring, obviously, from internally at the company, like
Yep.
literally Rod going, you should hire her, don't let her leave. Hired me like within 2 weeks, I started. And that was kind of my pivot into digital. And so it was the sales department of the TV station. So we were selling to local businesses to advertise on TV, and digital was
Mm-hmm.
just coming up. So we were selling to them also part of our packages to advertise on our website. So all the ads on the website. So I was creating the whole campaigns, doing our newsletters from the TV station, and creating the ads for the campaigns and putting them into motion. Oh, I was in heaven. I love that job.
Did you use like Dart for advertisers?
Yes. Oh my god. Yes, this is like publisher
So I started my
advertising.
career in publishing,
There you go.
in advertising, where
Yeah.
I was the campaign manager and I orchestrated all of the ads on the websites, did all the analytics, did my screenshots like that. And that was my favorite job,
Yeah.
like one of my favorite jobs of all time. If I look back, I'm like,
Yeah.
I really missed that.
It
That's
was
so funny.
fun. It was fun, not a lot of pressure, like, measurement had just come out, so it wasn't always, like,
Yep.
tied to revenue, like, you could go and report to clients, like, "We got 35,000 impressions on this one ad," and they were, like, so
Yep.
happy that
Right.
35,000 people looked at it, and it was just like,
Attribution wasn't a thing
yes,
yet. Nobody cared about, did they convert? Nope. It was like, you got this many impressions, this many clicks. Yay!
yay! Oh my god, buy more, and they would, and so
Yes, they would.
it was so awesome to me. I loved it. I loved the whole idea. I obviously knew more about websites than anyone did at that point because I gone to school
Yep.
for it and like done a second internship with my computer science teacher who owned a computer like website company for restaurants or something. So at that point, I'd already interacted with a ton of websites, and then finally my sales manager was like, you need to go out with these AEs who are selling the advertising packages because they don't know how to talk about the digital part. They only know how to sell the
Yeah.
TV spots. So I would go with them, and then I started helping them sell digital. And finally my sales manager was like, do you just want to be an AE and just like make money off of selling digital campaigns? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So then it went to commission based. Hardest job I'd ever had. So I went from my favorite job to my least favorite job.
Fair.
Made me a better marketer. Don't regret it. I did it for 3 years or 2.5 years. Don't regret it. But like, it was so hard. I didn't realize how hard it was, even though I was so passionate. I just was never the kind of person who could force something down someone's throat because I had to hit quota. So if my client was like,
Yeah.
it's just not the season for us, I would never be the objection handler that's like,
You'd be like,
yeah,
okay,
I'd be
that's
like,
great.
okay,
Let
you
me
know
know
what?
when the season comes around.
Yes.
Very good. I'll be here. I'll be waiting.
Yeah. I'd be like, that's fair. Instead of saying, well, you know what? You need to kind of keep eyes going, whatever. Yeah. I just
Right,
couldn't do
right.
that. And then I was like, I want to go back to campaign management. I need to like do that. And that was finally after 6 years at the station, I went and joined a big digital marketing team, like 13 of us in-house working on 389 websites and clients, like for this
Wow.
big consulting company called Mercer, which is under Marsh and McLennan. So 20,000 person company. And
Yep.
that then became my favorite job because I had the best manager ever. Strong
Mm.
woman, amazing, empathetic, taught me a lot. We are still very, very close today. We like talk every month, we text and all of this stuff. She was an amazing mentor. But that like period of 3 years working at that company, I was like full into digital, and I knew I was like never ever gonna stray from that. Like this would be my career path.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, there's so many parallels. Like, I mean, like we could probably geek out on all of this
Yes.
stuff because like the early age of digital was my
Yeah.
favorite. I don't know that I could ever go back because it's so different
Yes.
now. But man, I mean, if you got in on the ground floor of like digital advertising, like we thought who we were. It was so cool. And if you are data driven, like clearly we are, the being able to like control and see the impact of the work that we did. Oh man, I do miss that sometimes. Not every day, but sometimes. All right, so let's talk about this because obviously not everything was sunshine and rainbows. You've highlighted a lot of these like pivotal moments and things that kind of helped you get to where you are.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges you had to navigate?
Here's the funny thing. The further I got up the ladder, the issues start happening. So you know how Biggie Smalls is like
Yeah, I'm not
more
surprised.
money, more
Mhm.
problems.
More money, more
More
problems.
money,
Yes.
more titles, more problems. After Mercer, I ended up getting my first like head of digital and website job. And I was like, okay, now I'm leading the department. I have big budgets to manage, not just for like paid advertising, but for everything, vendor management, software tools, all of those things. And then I got the second one that was very similar. And then I got the third one that was very similar. And what ends up happening is at some point, you make this pivot in your career from doing the work to delegating, managing the work, and managing people. So you're doing more stakeholder management than you are, doing the actual tactic of the work.
Yeah.
And I realized that I'm not always very good at that. Because
Fair.
I'm kind of an honest person. You can see a lot of things on my face if I don't like things. So it was very taxing to be like, I got to manage 15 people's opinions, and then my outputs are going to look
Mhm.
like this, like stakeholder pot roast, but then I'm held accountable for the stuff. So
Right.
it's like I'd build this page, everyone would give their input, then it looks like a quilt, and then later on, my leaders are like, well, why isn't this performing? I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, it was Becky in this group and Susan in that group.
No,
And
because at that level, you have to take
you
accountability.
have to take
It's,
accountability. You can't be
yep.
pointing fingers. You can't be doing that stuff.
Nope.
And so that was kind of the first part where I was like, oh, it's not great. But then you're making a lot of money. So now you're like, well, I don't want to give up the money, whatever. And so you think,
Right.
so the first leadership position you get is like that dopamine hit where it's like, yes, I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I am like respected and people want to hear, my opinion, and I get to run shit and do whatever. But then you realize very
Right.
quickly you don't have all the autonomy that you think you have because you still need
Right.
buy-in from a lot of people, right? So the first one's like, okay. Then the second one, okay, now the game, it's going a little bit further. I think the big pivot for me was like I was in traditional B2B, and B2B to C my whole life. And I say traditional because those companies tend to move a lot slower. 20,000 person companies, they've been around forever. Things take a long
Yeah.
time to go, get off the ground, red tape, whatever. And then I made a pivot to B2B SaaS, more startup world, that kind of stuff, which I loved it because we could move a lot faster. But what happens when you're moving a lot faster, you have a higher propensity to crash.
Yep.
And I crashed a lot. So I didn't realize it because loyalty and things like that were rewarded at other companies. But when I went into B2B SaaS, something that's very normalized are things like layoffs, budget cuts, moving quick, changing direction, all of these things. So it almost went the complete opposite end of we have way too many things happening for the number of people that we have and the amount of money that we have. But
Mm-hmm.
no one is taking things off your plate at the same time.
No,
No.
never.
And so the big thing is I, at that point now, was married. I had my daughter, and kids change everything. They change your
Mm-hmm.
perspective on everything, right? Um, and I realized, oh shoot, I have this human that not only just depends on me for physically being alive, but also emotional well-being, and also I want to be with my children, right? And
Right.
so the first company, it was fine. I had a woman manager, very hot and cold, and we didn't end up getting along. And then I experienced my first layoff, and I didn't even know this was a thing. And so that was just so. It was traumatic for me as a high performer because even though it
Yeah.
wasn't personal, you take it personally.
Of course.
And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, where did I F up? What did I do wrong?" And you just go into
Yeah.
this, like, cycle of, like, "Oh my gosh, this like, what did I do wrong? What did I wrong?" And then you realize, like, looking at your annual reviews, looking at your feedback, like, they were all good. You're just a
Yeah.
number, on the budget sheet. And, so after wallowing for a little while, I was like, "Okay, I finally got myself up a little bit," got introduced to the CMO of this other company, ended up getting my first, like, director level job and got, like, a $65,000 raise, and I was like, "Oh, shit, so I'm back, baby. This is great. F you last company. I'm succeeding, your loss," like, so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like the boyfriend that didn't wanna be with you, but then you ended up with, like, a freaking Abercrombie model, and you're like, "Sup,
Right. Right.
sup, nice running into you again." Um, right? So that was nice because I was like, "Oh, I have an even higher position and more money and at a better company than I ever did." And I had a great couple of years at that company. And then things started to, the honeymoon phase is over. And slowly over time, it's funny because when you are so grateful for an opportunity, and us as women, we do this a lot. Instead of being outraged about something, we feel, or we're taught to feel grateful that it's not worse, or grateful that we were given the opportunity.
Yeah.
So the first year, everything was fine. I had a small team under me, I had a decent budget. Everything went really well. Lots of praise from my boss. We had a great relationship. Um, the and at that 1 year point, she's like, I can't wait to promote you next year. Just so you know, it's on the cards, it's on the roadmap. Usually people are here a couple of years before we promote them. I'm like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I know you have my back. We're good. Fast forward to a year. In that span of time, I lost my whole team. no backfills. Okay. They did a couple of layoffs, whatever. One of them left, the other one was laid off. They're like, we're gonna backfill. Trust me. They didn't backfill. The projects
Right.
never went down. Still 45 projects sitting in my Airtable. I would be like, well, none of these have moved. So 45. My budget cut by 25%. My
Wow.
growth targets up by 20%.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, I'm 8 months pregnant with my second. Working 50, 60-hour weeks. And so still I was smiling and I was so grateful for the opportunity.
Grateful.
So
Yeah.
grateful. I'm so
So
lucky
grateful.
that I still have my job. I'm
You're
I'm
blessed.
blessed.
You're
Hashtag
blessed.
blessed.
Right.
I'm so lucky that they value me. Um, and then fast forward to a year, the next annual review cycle comes around. I have amazing annual review. I still have it. If I still got the receipts. Amazing annual review. And I was like, hey, you know what? Is that promotion still happening? That you mentioned last year? Oh, she looked like I told her mom died. Oh, you still want that promotion? I figured you didn't want it because you didn't mention it all year. Mm.
Cool.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. Yep.
Mhm.
You know what? Didn't have gaslighting on my bingo card today, but here we are.
But here we
Here
are.
we are.
Mhm.
And that was kind of the pivot where our relationship kind of had an issue because all that all the things that I was so grateful for immediately turned into resentment. I would
Right.
still obviously didn't raise my voice, didn't do any of that, but I did challenge her for the first time in our relationship in 2 years. She was so used to me being the yes man
Yeah.
that she was shocked when I came to my own defense. And that is both uh her fault for not expecting someone to stand up for themselves, but my fault for never being the person who ever spoke up and just being the
Yeah.
yes ma'am. And I was like, wait, you were the one that kind of proposed that. I don't know, like, what changed or why this happened and
Right.
all these things. And then, the typical corporate stall tactics. Oh, let's put together a plan. We'll do a mid year promotion, maybe. Oh, whatever, whatever, just all of this stuff. And
Mhm.
and I was like, she goes, you got to take on more responsibility. I'm like, more responsibility. I'm like,
More? It's like you cut my team, you cut my budget.
yes,
I'm doing all this basically by myself with two hands tied behind my
yeah.
back. Like, what do you mean
And I
more?
said, I work 50, 60 hours a week. How much more could I possibly take on? She goes, well, you know what? This is why I waited until my kids were a little bit older to pursue things with my career. I'm like, are you
Oh,
legally?
hell
I'm like, are
no.
you legally allowed to say that
She
to me?
see, this is the stuff that really like gets me going because
Mhm.
what?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's when it started souring. And then we got
Mhm.
a workday system and I could see when my peers were taking time off too. And I realized my
Sure.
peers who had bigger teams, my budgets went to them. They were taking weeks off at a time. And I'm like, it was February or March. I hadn't taken time off since December for, Christmas. And before that, I was on maternity leave until October. I had not taken any time off. So I took time off to help my mother in law with surgery that she was getting. I said I would not be available. I'm driving around everywhere. What everybody heard was you have flexible availability. And my boss wouldn't stop calling me or trying to get a hold of me because she had to tell me something really important. I'm like, okay, cool. I can talk right now. She's like, well, I can't talk right now. I'm like, okay. So we try to arrange a time. Finally, in the evening, I get my mother in law in bed. She's got her meds. And I'm like, hey, I can finally talk now. She calls me and she goes, okay, before I even tell you all the stuff that I need to tell you, I want to talk to you a little bit about your availability. I'm like, what about my availability? And then she said, you know what? This is what I mean about taking on more responsibility. You, you just got to be more available. That's what leaders do. So now she's starting to woman-splain to me what leaders do after I have been a leader already at that point for like 3 or 4 years. And so then she says, you know what? Even when I'm on the beach with my kids, when the CMO calls me, I pick up the phone. And Kristi, that line was the one line that changed the entire course of my life from that point on. I hung up the phone after talking to her. I rage applied to 50 jobs. And then I sat there. It's midnight at my in law's house. And I'm like, what is going to happen though? Say these 50 jobs get back to me. I interview and I get another job. Fine. It's fine for 2 years. The honeymoon phase is
Right.
over. Then we're complacent. Somebody's going to end up unhappy. Am I just going to keep doing the cycle the rest of my freaking
Yeah.
life? Like, so I was like, you know what? I have a job right now. I've been giving it 150%, but I'm going to tone it down now to 100%. I will work during the hours that they've allotted for me to work. I will get my things done. But any spare time that I have is going to go towards something creative. And that's
Yeah.
when I wanted to start a parenting podcast because my daughter is like a really sensitive child, and planned everything, wrote out like 70 episodes, all of the stuff, planned everything, left the marketing part to the end because I'm like, I'm a career marketer. I got that. Realized I didn't get it because you got to actually build a network to listen to your podcast. You
Yeah.
probably know better than me. And then I went to Twitter, they were like, you got to write organically, whatever, share some content. Twitter, I had 1.5 followers. I'm like, I'm not doing this. When LinkedIn, I had 1,200 and I'm like, okay, 1,200 is a good foundation, but it would be weird if I came out with parenting content. So I started personal development, met some marketers who were like, why are you writing about this personal development stuff? Like, write about marketing. You're a marketer. I'm like, I'm so burnt out, whatever. Finally started writing about marketing, saw some growth, and unintentionally was not planning to start anything. Companies started reaching out for jobs. Companies started reaching out for consulting gigs. And I was like, what? And that's when the light bulb went off. But I was still in-house. I didn't take like any of those opportunities. Finally, I found out that the company was going to do a second round of layoffs. But see, I knew about the
Here
first
we
one.
are.
And so I didn't about the second one. I'm like, oh, I bet I'm on that list because my boss and I are at odds. She doesn't think I'm a
Yeah.
team player anymore. She doesn't like that I'm posting on LinkedIn. I'm definitely on that list. And she gets on the layoff call, which did happen. And she goes, it has nothing to do with performance. I'm like, oh, I know it has nothing to do with performance because I performed the fuck out of my job.
Right.
Okay. Like, honestly, I did. And so, yeah. And then she went on about how well connected she is and she'll get me another job and all of this other stuff. And when she hung up, I'm like, I don't want to rely on you to do anything for me because you've done nothing for
Right.
me up until this point. And
Right.
so now I'm happy to say I just continued writing on LinkedIn, started working with these companies, eventually niched down into landing pages. And then now I can say with confidence that I'm way more connected than she is. So if she needs a job, well, don't come to me.
Maybe she can reach out to you.
No.
You might not be much help.
Yeah.
Oh, Tas, this is awesome. Your story is really, really inspiring. In fact, if you're open to it, I'm going to totally put you on the spot right
Yeah.
now because we're still recording. Would you be open to a part 2?
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, because I feel like your story, I'm not done hearing it, neither are my listeners. So if you're open to it, let's keep this conversation going. I want to record a part 2. You will be my first guest ever to have a part 2 episode.
Is that because I'm
And it's
so
just because,
long-winded?
nope, it's because your story, there's so much depth to it. And I think everything you've been sharing along the way has a learning in there. And I'm not done learning. And I know if there's more for me to learn here, there's more for others to learn as well. So if you're open to it, we're going to do a part 2. You will be the first one to have a 2-part series, but we're not done here. So with that said, I'm not even going to ask any more questions because we're going to ask more questions on the next recording episode. But for those of you who enjoyed this episode, you're going to come back for a part 2 that will be released at the same time as this one. So that way we don't have to keep you waiting. Because I hate when I go on TikTok and they're like, scroll to the next one for part 2. And then there's no part 2. And that kills me. So I'm not going to do that to you. We're going to release both together. We'll get them recorded. But for everybody who's listening, please, if you liked this episode, rate, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, connect with us on LinkedIn. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Hi guys, I want to share a bit about an organization that I support called Wednesday Women. They're on a mission to increase the visibility of executive women leaders that you should know, learn from, and be inspired by. On LinkedIn, they share the profile of 2 amazing women each week, on Wednesdays of course. And now just imagine if we all followed, amplified, and nominated the women that we want to see more of. Their initiative provides examples of women CEOs, founders, sales executives, technical leaders, and so many more. By supporting Wednesday Women, you'll see more of these professionals in your social feeds, of course, but also on stages, podcasts, and panels. If you're interested in learning more and supporting their initiative, head over to www.wednesdaywomen.org or follow them on LinkedIn.